Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips. With me is the man who makes me sound as good as I do, and the one you all tune in to listen for, Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And we've got a jam-packed episode for you today as we catch up on everything going on in Wisconsin state politics. We've got some news on candidates to talk about, plus analysis on Josh Schoeman's election reform package, sports gambling bills falling apart, illegal immigrant crime rings are running wild in Mequon, and Tony Evers is less the education governor and more the groomer governor. So hopefully we arm you with some facts and quips and some yucks for your Thanksgiving to push back on your boomer aunt who spent the last few weekends at No King rallies, or your cousin who is so enlightened after their first semester at Illinois Wesleyan or even Lawrence University. So let's start this off, as we traditionally do, covering the latest high-profile candidates or semi-candidates.
Emphasis on high profile.
Yes, high-profile candidates like Kirk Bangstad, the
illustrious.
Yes.
The infamous
Kirk Bangstad has posted recently on his Substack from Minocqua Brewing that he was going to consider running for governor. Now, originally, he was going to have Charlie Sykes, the former conservative, former talk show host, now founder of the fake Republican Bulwark news site, was supposed to go up there, but apparently Charlie canceled. I guess he finally realized that that's a bridge too far.
Well, that's how you know Kirk is so off his rocker that, like, there are some, like, what I would consider pretty far left Democrats that are like, guys, why do we even give this guy the air to breathe? Like, he's a total parasite that just is absolutely unhinged. And even Charlie Sykes, my assumption is Charlie Sykes was willing to platform him, but someone got to him. It's like, dude, this guy's going to probably go to prison or something.
Yeah.
Actually, for like campaign election crimes, let alone his defamation lawsuit. I mean, the guy is a complete basket case. But.
Yeah. No, he's certainly, been accused of funneling money through his PACs to keep his business alive and not spending the money where he should. But I think overall, we saw Jay Jones in Virginia in the Attorney General's race, dropped a lot of really repugnant text messages. But that was like stuff he was sending privately. I think Kirk Bangstad, if he's going to run for governor, he's going to do it publicly. So I want to read a little bit from his blog post on this.
Please do.
And so he says that, but last night after watching Senate Democrats cave on the shutdown, I went to bed furious and could barely sleep. I woke up at 3 a.m. with a stomach ache that I unfortunately get every time something terrible happens in Wisconsin or America.
Give me a break.
Yeah. But I'm a businessman who runs a super PAC. I'm getting sued every which way but sideways. I've invested most of what I have into my new progressive marketplace, and I don't have enough money to run. I have no experience as an elected official. I've written some pretty controversial things in the last 5 years. My somewhat libertine lifestyle as a guy who makes booze would be great fodder for awful gossip columnists like Dan Bice. And let me get dramatic for a second. After last night's utter capitulation by our Democratic senators, that's what I think Wisconsin and America need right now more than anything else. Fighters who refuse to give up. I want to chew Tom Tiffany and Derek Van Orden up on a debate stage with facts and history, and then proverbially spit their empty minds and souls out on live TV for everyone to witness.
Well, give him the Oscar for World's Best Grifter, because now that was great. But what I love most is that he's like, I've invested most of what I have into my new progressive marketplace and don't have enough money to run. It's like, I'm poor. And
that's why I'm paying myself through my super PAC.
Yeah. So I don't have any money, but I got all this money sitting in my super PAC. What if I were to run for governor? Maybe I could money launder. Dude, that's exactly what he's going to do.
Right.
He is the definition of a grifter, and he only has himself to blame. If he wasn't so busy trying to defame the Lakeland Times, editor-in-chief constantly and getting actually hit with a defamation lawsuit, like you might have some extra money, but no, he's just going to run for governor and try to siphon off those hippie Madison libs that just love the beer.
I think he's kind of going to try and do the George Santos thing, where that was like the producers, right? Mel Brooks's movie, musical. Like, you can actually make more money running a failed campaign than an actual one. And George ended up accidentally winning that race and got investigated for it. I think we're going to see the same with Kirk. I mean, he's not going to win, but he can do it. And I think one of the things wrong with the Democrat Party today, it seems like it's a bunch of aging theater kids and band dorks that think politics is like the West Wing, where all you need is high-minded rhetoric and a camera to really convince the entire country that you're on the side of right.
Well, there is some truth behind it, but yes, you are correct in that the previous administration was a theater kid occupied government. Now, as someone that has some sympathy for the theater, I can understand where they're coming from. And I would also say that for Republicans that are serious about being successful, and especially if you're like a local candidate or if you're even a state candidate and would like to move up the ranks, I think you should take an acting class. I really do, because just not saying that you have to be plastic or fake, but just a little bit of an acting class just to maybe get outside of your own self a little bit. And I think you could be even more personable. And I think it can come across as genuine and not just little acting, quite literally.
Little Toastmasters action.
So my thing is, theater occupied government, though, the libs, big time theater kids. But I think Republicans would maybe benefit from just a little bit of acting, just a little bit of, softening up a little bit on those issues. And maybe I'm not saying that Republicans aren't personable, because, libs being the insufferable SSRI caucus that they are, can be a little too neurotic and such. So this was just balance it out a little bit. But that's an aside.
Well, speaking of a candidate that may need an acting class or, a charisma bump, there is another guy who's getting in the race. Yeah, you're welcome for that. So Joel Brennan has announced that he's likely to get in the Democrat primary for governor. I think he'll be coming up. He plans to announce in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, right after. He said basically by Christmas.
So the milquetoast, boring lane is getting awfully crowded for the Democrats.
Well, the white guy lane is wide open.
That's true.
Yeah. So if and it was interesting. There was a clip. AJ Bayat-Pour interviewed him, and he said, "What do you say to those people that think that you'll be just another extension of the Tony Evers administration?" Which, like, everyone's thinking it. So everyone else kind of has a slightly different niche, but it does feel like Joel would be an extension of Tony Evers in many respects. And he said, "Well, I would disagree with that," which, of course, he would.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that a lot of candidates like Missy Hughes, like Joel Brennan, like Sarah Russell Rodriguez are going to have to contend with is, where is the daylight between you and Tony Evers? But before we get too far, for those of you who hear the name Joel Brennan and have no idea who we're talking about, I wouldn't be surprised if there's several of you. Joel was Tony Evers' DOA secretary during his first term. Brennan said he's been given the same thought for a while, and he's been in public service for 35 years, including 3 years, of course, as Tony Evers' secretary. Cut that part. Sorry, I'm just reading the wrong thing. But I want to point out that I while working at WEDC, I did meet Joel Brennan, and he definitely didn't seem up for the job, seemed a bit lost. Now, it was early in the time, but the oddest thing was that he openly mentioned that he had never met Tony Evers prior to being nominated for the job. And for those who maybe aren't as insider as we are, Department of Administration Secretary is probably the second most powerful position in state government for the administration. And usually, traditionally, the person you pick for that job is like your best friend in politics. Scott Walker had Mike Hipsch in that role for a while. I know he's put other people.
Your right-hand man.
Yeah, it's your guy, because DOA is an enormous. It's the department of anything. They do a lot of stuff. You need someone there you can trust, and you usually pick your best friend. Tony Evers picked a guy out of the blue that he never met before, and there was a little concern. It is pretty crazy, and there were some concerns about Joel getting the job in the beginning, because I can't remember this exactly, so I may be getting a couple facts wrong, just a little bit off. he has a family member who's like a large donor or bundler for Evers, and there was a little bit of suspicion when he picked up the job that he's actually the Fredo of his family, who's only getting these jobs through his connections and siblings. So
nepotism.
Yeah. But now we have additional candidates on both wings of the Democratic spectrum. We have Kirk Bangstad. Again, he's flirting with running. He's probably gonna, because again he's gonna make super PAC money.
He just needs to make money.
He joins Frankie Hong, Brett Halsey, allegedly Kelda Roys.
I forgot Brett Halsey was even in.
Yeah.
Sorry. So between Kirk Baxton, Joel Brennan, and Brett Halsey, the white guy lane is filling up actually.
Yeah.
But we have the Brett Halsey. Kirk Baxton is the craziest. Brett Halsey's not far behind.
Right.
Joel Brennan's like
the boringest, corporatist, moderate, like problem solver, business selected Democrat. Yeah, he's totally. We
just need like one white guy that's like gay to run and just kind of fill the middle.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure Pete Buttigieg is thinking maybe he should move to Wisconsin. So
he was in lacrosse, railing against DVO. Also, the fact that Kirk Baxton said he wants to debate
DVO and Tom Tiffany. Yeah.
Like, God.
Kind of glossed over that part.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, dude, you're trying to run for governor or Congress?
Anything.
I guess.
Again, he thinks he can just, rhetorically punch back on any of them and they'll have nothing.
DVO just lives in the heads of liberals everywhere. And if DVO wins, give the man a plaque, give the man his seat. Like he'll never lose. Like, but that's an entire different issue. But yeah, we'll see the Democrat Party candidacy for governor.
But
expanding.
Both sides of that of those wings between the far left progressive socialists and the corporatist moderate problem solvers getting both sides filling up quick. Do want to talk about another candidate though, and we were going to go from statewide races to microscopic assembly races. I don't know if you caught this one. Waukesha Alderman Rico Camacho is running for assembly. Now, again, you might not recognize that name, but if I told you about the Catholic Memorial school teacher who was fired for attempting to dox some guys that looked, in his mind, like ICE agents, that would be Rico.
Sounds like he was maybe profiling them.
Yeah.
Potentially.
But this guy, from my understanding, I've heard this from multiple people, like his IQ is probably lower than the number of the assembly district he's running for.
The district?
82.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we're getting into functionally retarded range.
Yeah. No, this is room temperature. Yeah. So just want to call this out. Like, probably doesn't stand much of a chance.
Well, you never know. We'll see. I mean, I guess I don't know who else potentially Democrat wise would jump in that race. I'm not really well versed on where the Democrats in Waukesha County, the city of Waukesha live.
There is a second name in that race, and that's Kevin Riley. His brother is the current mayor.
Yep. Okay. So he might be the ordained guy.
Yep. So again, you might just have the corporatist side versus.
But I really want the Camacho guy to.
Yeah.
Yeah. He thinks that he's. Oh, I found the ice. I found them. Then loses his job, and
because it was a bunch of WEDC or WCTC. It was a bunch of WCTC instructors, like the firearms instructors, I think, or public safety instructors.
So I mean, I guess you could kind of get why he maybe thought that they were ICE. Whatever, they kind of had that look about them, but at the same time, dude's an idiot. And what better way than Democrats failing up? Well, here I'm an alderman. I just got in this big controversy. I'll run for assembly now. Great.
Striking while the iron's hot.
Exactly. Hey, my name has never been in the news more. Any press is good press. Might as well capitalize on it. So we'll see how that goes.
And then in candidate adjacent news, Brad Schimmel is going to be named U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, acting attorney, because the reason he is not getting the permanent appointment yet is because New York City Senator Tammy Baldwin has refused to sign off on Schimmel's appointment because she is a blatant progressive partisan hack.
Way to go, Tammy. This is not surprising at all, of course. But which is going to be very interesting is that Brad Schimmel, assuming he continues on as acting U.S. attorney, that's prosecuting the Hannah Dugan case.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an interview. They did an interview with Schimmel where he actually talked about. Apparently, they've given her a plea deal. Like
there was a plea deal on the table. Yes.
Yeah. No, obviously we don't know what the details are. And according to the clip, she maintains her innocence, of course. But I guess I'm very curious to see, because a lot of federal charges never make it to trial because the feds, coming with a plea deal, they plead they plead down for a lesser charge or something. So I'm curious to see if Schimmel can get that through.
A plea deal means you accept some level of guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm assuming if she accepts any level of guilt, there will be. Now, I'm going back into the brain files here. A couple months ago when this happened, I remember the speaker said something along the lines of, if she's convicted, they'll take action. What that means, we'll see. But I'm assuming if you take a plea deal for even lesser charges, you're admitting guilt, and I'm assuming even a high level misdemeanor. I don't know. I can't remember the exact charges, but I remember they kind of threw the book at her a little bit. So we'll see.
But Brad Schimmel is incredibly qualified for this as a Waukesha district attorney.
He's been in every level of the
attorney general system. Yeah. And a judge now. He could easily do this role.
Yeah. Like, politics aside, he's done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. You look at his resume. This is a guy that, like you said, without looking at through a partisan lens,
Tammy
should easily walk into this role and be able to make a mark right away. Very skilled lawyer, skilled judge, knows both sides of the courtroom, would make a great permanent U.S. attorney for the Eastern District.
We hope so.
So let's, should we talk a little policy, little legislation, little stuff going on around the state? So first one I want to talk about, this is pretty cool. Josh Schoeman has launched his election reform agenda. So the proposal includes dissolving WEC, Wisconsin Election Commission, and transferring its responsibilities to an elected position. It calls for the removal of ballot drop boxes. It would also end the use of central count, instead mandating that ballots are counted in the same location where they're cast. Fourth component of the proposal would require a Wisconsin constitutional amendment, moving all statewide elections to the fall. Currently, the elections for state Supreme Court and the state superintendent of public instruction are held in the spring. And let's talk about that final one right away. I think right now, this is one of those things that the left is going to hate right now, but they would probably push for it if the cycle was a little bit different, because you catch.
You're talking about elections.
Elections in the fall. Yeah, because right now when you have a partisan primary on the April ballot for president, it's going to it tends to drive out one party over the other, and right now that's the Republicans have had their candidate, so it's easy to get the Democrats out because they're trying to pick a person for their primary. Flips it around, the Republicans had a heated primary that went until our April election. The Democrats were solid on their candidate. All the Republicans would turn out. So I think both sides actually would benefit from moving these races to the fall. And the fact is they've already become partisan enough, or partisan adjacent.
Yeah.
That
the thing is I like the idea of an April election personally, as a person on the spectrum when it comes to politics. Like, I just love having elections. Basically, there's always an election right around the corner.
Right.
It's also exhausting and depressing at the same time, depending on which side of the outcome you are. But it's so, in an ideal world, this works perfectly if we have a bunch of citizens that pay attention and understand what they're voting on. But when we go into an April election and most people don't even know what the constitutional amendment is, boy, it's like, and that's, some of that is on, I think the greater entities to educate. Obviously, like, I understand some of those constitutional amendments are tough to understand. And I'm not saying that people can understand them if they do their own research, but yeah, we need also some help, like with advertising and stuff like that on these April elections, and moving this to November would help. Messaging everything on one ballot. But, maybe we should just make these nonpartisan races just partisan.
Yeah.
why? Let's not maybe beat around the bush. I'm less confident on doing that. I don't think we need to. But if you move it to November, I mean, it would be basically de facto partisan.
Yeah.
But it was still holding on to the kind of relic of nonpartisanness. So I'm generally supportive of it because most people, I want to say most people, but there is certainly a plurality of people that are not quote unquote citizens, I would say, and don't really, either they don't care and so they don't vote when in fact these elections probably impact their lives more than 100%. Any other one.
More than the presidency, that's for sure.
Yeah. In many respects, yes. So if it drives out more involvement, I think I'm generally supportive, but the fact that we have to do that probably is a indication of a greater problem anyway. So those are my thoughts on
the rest of it. I think is pretty solid. Interested in the transferring responsibilities to an elected position. A lot of other states, it's the Secretary of State handles the election responsibilities. Wisconsin is not weird, but Wisconsin is unique in that the Secretary of State is purely ceremonial. They do virtually nothing. So you could easily give it to that role. Hell, you could give it to the treasurer or lieutenant governor, quite frankly, because all three of them have very few actual duties. So this would be something you would probably have to add staff to those offices. But outside of that, like giving those elections some value probably would be helpful. And then, of course, removing drop boxes is an easy slam dunk.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
And then ending central count. At the end of the day, it doesn't change like the votes, but it gives more confidence in knowing that your vote is counted where it was placed. It makes you feel better, I think, in just general, because you're not shipping them off to central Milwaukee County to be dumped at 3 a.m.
Yeah, there's more onus put on the individual municipality. So there's probably more pressure and more work to be done for that individual municipality to check and double check. And I'm not an election, observer or expert, but yeah. And so I understand people have the concern with central count, and I get that, but I feel like the central count is more of a redundancy than anything. I mean, the locals still count their own ballots. They just, when they're done, they ship everything to central count. So I go back and forth, and I certainly wouldn't have enough knowledge to really give it a strong opinion on that. So that's just me personally.
I think it would give me more confidence in the in the vote in the vote count.
What I would love, and we'll probably talk a little bit about this later, is I would love. This is a proposal that has been brought up in sessions past, but did not get brought up this time. Was the bill to basically start counting votes earlier, similar to what Florida does, but Florida actually, I believe, processes the ballots as soon as they come in, absentee ballots. So it comes in the mail, they instantly process it. Instead of, I believe the bill that was put out last session would only allow you to start processing those ballots the day before election day, just so they have a little bit of extra lead time. That would be fantastic. And I think that would be able to get your goal of votes in on election day at a decent time, instead of having the kind of trickle in that we sometimes get, depending on what county you're looking at. So,
So let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about something that's been in the news for several weeks, unfortunately, is the Department of Public Instruction and how they've been covering up sexual misconduct allegations from teachers. And recently, Representative Amanda Nedwesky put out a bill that would define grooming, because one of the problems that DPI pointed out is without a clear definition of what grooming is, it's kind of hard to pin that on these teachers who are, in fact, doing grooming and committing these sexual misconducts against their students. But as it turns out, we called this a slam dunk, right? Everyone would.
Yeah, we had a little bit of skepticism. Like I believe my take was that Tony would be pretty hard pressed to oppose this, and I don't see why he would logically. But apparently, I overestimated my own political
because
hackiness.
Tony Evers is not on board with Wisconsin's anti-grooming legislation. This comes to us from the Wisconsin Examiner and Center Square. He said teachers are not police officers. They are not DAs. He added that he probably won't sign the plan. If it's going to stop teachers from maybe putting their arm around a kid when they're hurting, probably not. Now, he said the issue of grooming is very difficult. I remember when I was a state superintendent, we went through some things to make the laws more thoughtful and helpful. But at the end of the day, grooming is something that's hard to define. If we want it to be against the law, we need to identify what it is. So this is absolutely ridiculous that he can't seem to understand that there is a definition. Other states have a definition. It's easy to define it, and it's easy then to prosecute it and get these bad teachers out of classrooms. But Tony Evers now has created this situation for all of these other. It's poor politics from him. For not being on the side of students, for not being on the side of parents, but instead being willing to overlook terrible behavior from teachers. It's also putting all of these Democrat gubernatorial candidates in a position of either you're with Tony and groomers, or you have to break from him, because he's now created this permission structure for them to vote against of what should be a slam dunk bill.
Well, it is quite literally baffling that he would actually oppose this. And I thought this was a slam dunk. Mm-hmm. The definition, I mean, like we've said before, they usually just charge disorderly conduct, and because there's no actual reason. But Tony Evers apparently can't differentiate between a hug and grooming.
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked at this video so many times and I was like, either Tony is so ignorant to not know the difference between a hug and grooming, or he's such a political hack that he must question the intentions of every bill, or he just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Right. I think that's what it is. I think
did someone not brief him on the bill?
Right. I think that either, like Biden, Tony Evers' brain after 3 p.m. is basically applesauce,
or he just
can't function, and he's too lazy to get involved in things. He's like, I'm out of here in a year. Who gives a shit? Or his staff is already checked out to that point where they are not providing him the proper information.
Like, if you're going to oppose a bill on grooming, you should probably have your facts straight before you go into an interview.
Exactly.
If you're going to oppose it, like, there better be a really good reason. I'm sorry, but if you cannot differentiate the difference between a hug and grooming, you should not have any opinion on anything. Like, the sexual assaults and DPI, it's like over 200 or something. Okay. There's probably more, but we'll just go off the basis that we have. We're talking 200 of the thousands of teachers, the tens. Well, I don't know how many teachers there are in Wisconsin, but there's like 400 school districts. You average out how many where there's thousands of teachers.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about 200. If you cannot throw them under the bus because, a hug, get real. Like, this is pitiful. It's bad. You're right. It's bad politics. Are you thinking that there's some teachers that are going to be, maligned for a hug? Like, I don't know any student that would see that as malicious,
Right.
I mean, sure. Can you give a hug to a student that could be grooming? Yes, I understand. But let's not be pedantic, and let's use some common sense here, Tony.
Yeah, well, you want to talk about why he might not be in favor of this. The Cap Times, in another flagrant act of journalism from Danielle Duclos, had the title, Tony Evers' DPI shelved teacher misconduct rules in 2018. So maybe he's trying to cover up or downplay
the importance
of it because he overlooked it when he was in DPI. So 8 years ago, leaders at the State Department of Public Instruction recognized a need for the agency's license misconduct investigations to be more transparent and effective. But agency leaders, that would be Tony Evers, shelved policy changes that would have increased public access to information about disciplined educators, added other ways to discipline educators, and established a clear legal definition of grooming, legislative documents show. So even 8 years ago, he was trying to downplay and cover up this information. Now, they said department leaders cited negative feedback, quote unquote, during public hearings halting for measures.
I mean,
Lies.
Yes. And it is kind of interesting that Tony could have been on the forefront of this. I mean, 2018, were we really talking about Groomer? I think the Groomer stuff was really 2022 was when that stuff popped up.
Yep.
So he could have been kind of on the forefront, but department officials kind of shelved it. So, well, I guess we're not going to touch that one anymore. And I know, hindsight's of course 2020, but frankly, I'm not in the mood of giving anyone a mulligan when Tony Evers, in the face of the grooming bill right now, is still like, nah, I don't know. I don't know if we should actually do that or not. Right. So I'm not going to give you the grace that in 2018 you didn't think it was a big deal. So
do want a hat tip Danielle Duclos at Capital Times that
banger after banger.
But it's great that they're doing some investigative reporting on a Democrat, even if it's because he no longer has any use to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin.
Free game, basically.
Yeah. So let's get into some more stuff that was happening actually at the state capitol this week. First, don't know if you saw this one. Credit Dan O'Donnell, I think, for breaking this story. The Democrats held an anti-ICE training at the Capitol, basically how to interfere with ICE and obstruct justice 101.
I would love to know what they actually talked about, but this is just another drop in the bucket of Democrats trying to advocate on the behalf of illegal foreign nationals. They just love illegals so much. They love them so much. They love them more than just regular Americans.
Well, that's because the rich ones funnel money to their super PACs, and the poor ones are given voter ID or given driver's license to vote for them.
Well, and Dan Schaefer got all mad at me when I said, "Oh, they just want to import a voting bloc," and it's like he said, "Well, actually, immigrants have shifted hard to the right in this most recent election." It's like, yeah, but if you look at the numbers, they still vote majority for Democrats. Also, you're assuming that those trends will continue. Also, you don't take into the fact that Kamala Harris was so freaking bad that immigrants shifted so far to the right. And she was so bad that they shifted so far to the right, and Democrats still got the majority of them. Okay? So I don't want to hear it. And also, this is not like a hard concept. Person give other person free stuff. Person that got free stuff like person that gave free stuff. Me like you. Okay? So if you think that relationship is hard to understand, that they might not all vote for Republicans. Yeah. Okay. Well, they're gonna reward. Come on. You give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
He's going to want a glass of milk.
He's going to want, and you're going to want his vote.
Yeah, and you're going to want his vote. Okay, so you're just giving them the incentives. I mean, they're just reacting as any normal person would act. So this is just another drop in the bucket for that. And I'm sure Representative Clancy is telling people how to, de-arrest people or give them their rights.
De-arrest.
Well, that's
a great term.
Yeah. Well, they try to obstruct law enforcement from arresting
just
them.
Handing out Uno reverse cards.
Well, no, I don't know. Who knows what the actual training actually said, but I do know the Antifa types do de-arrest. When someone's getting arrested, they'll try to obstruct the law enforcement to get them to basically run away. So
maybe some of this had how to wash your eyes out after being pepper sprayed. But yeah, so saw this thing, private do not enter. Now that's on the door. That's painted on the door. So it's a private meeting room in the state capitol, but no, not open to the public. No, this is a sign that's put on there, not open to the public. No entry without a judicial warrant signed by a judge or explicit invitation from the office owner or designee. So they were really they were really judicious about who they were letting in to their private room.
Yep.
You see where we're going.
Yeah, we can't have borders, but you can tell me and tell others, that you can or can't come into the room. And of course, so does that mean that room is just a sovereign nation and illegals can hide in there if they want?
Oh, well, I'm sure Hannah Dugan would have thought that way.
Yeah. This is how this is how they think. So,
So want to talk about actually what happened this week in the legislature, because they had a session date. And I think this might be the first time we really break down what went on during session.
There's just so much going on.
There's a lot of bills that were brought up this week. We want to highlight some of them, but
there's almost too much.
Yeah, the one we actually want to highlight first is one that fell apart. One that we were kind of against for a while. We've been talking a lot about.
I've gone back and forth.
Sports gambling and sports betting being allowed in the state via a hub and spoke model, which was that tribal the tribal organizations would have servers on their property that would connect to DraftKings Sportsbook, FanDuel, BetMGM, all the apps that are out there to place bets on games and sporting events. Now, there was a lot of pushback from a lot of organizations, and it wasn't just kind of the typical ones you'd think, like Wisconsin Family Action, which, for those who don't know, is certainly a conservative, pro-family organization, but they tend to stake out positions that are against gambling and other
based.
More general pro-family stuff, not just pro-life side. So they were against it. But it was more than that. It really seemed to fall apart this week when Will put out a memo that they thought the bill would be unconstitutional. So the Assembly had to scratch the vote at the last minute after they announced that they were going to have a vote on the bill, but it was going to be a voice vote. So that means voice vote means you just shout yay or nay when the opportunity comes up, as opposed to pressing the green button or the red button that is on the desks of the Assembly members that shows how they voted on a thing, which is a kind of a way to kind of cover up how you want something to go. You want the outcome you want, which is you're always going to hear more yays than nays, and it gives cover to some of the representatives that don't want to vote for things. But in this case, there were more nays than yays, and things kind of fell apart quickly. My understanding was that the Assembly tried to invoke the rule of 50, which it's kind of a handshake agreement that says that, in order to get something passed, you should have 50 members of the majority party in favor of voting for it. And that was not the case at this point with the sports gambling bill. Now we know that the Democrats were going to vote for this bill because they're going to get the money from Pato.
Mm-hmm.
So there was your base. And there was some threats that they were still going to pass the bill without majority of Republican votes. But at the end of the day, the sports gambling bill right now is not happening. They might come back up in the spring, might come back up in future legislative sessions, but because of the pushback I think it received by folks like Dan O'Donnell, it's not going to happen.
Well, maybe I've gone back and forth, but honestly, I don't care what happens with the bill, because I just want a Republican governor to rip up the gaming compact. It's stupid.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
The Indians get a monopoly on gambling. I don't like gambling, but if we're gonna,
like you said,
if they're gonna do gambling, I don't want them to be basically sole proprietors.
Right. It was strengthening the tribal cartel,
but at the same time, like, what else? Like, you have the compact,
without the compact or with the compact, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, so like this is kind of. I don't really see I understand Will's position on the bill, but at the same time, it's like, what other option? Either you just don't do it, and people still are working in the gray area prediction markets.
Yep.
People are still going to have their bookies. Like, that's going to happen.
A lot of the population can either drive to Pato, Potawatomi, which is the downtown Milwaukee casino, which has a sports book. It's actually, talked to several people about it. They say it's very nice. It's a great place to watch games, good food. It's a fun atmosphere, but instead
smells like cigarettes, looks like degeneracy.
Well, sure. But it's that, or you have to drive down to Illinois. So to unlock,
or maybe just
apps.
Like drive home, spend time with your family, and not gamble.
Right. No,
you degenerates.
I am
smash the idol.
I'm with you though. I am in some ways ambivalent to actually allowing a sports book to be accessed from Wisconsin.
Again, I am too.
My hang up is, like you said, it's de facto reparations that we're giving in the form of a tax on degenerate gamblers or people who aren't in a financial position to do what they're doing and taking their money and you said It's a cartel.
I secretly love this bill, and I secretly love this issue because it's kind of like Breaking Bad for me. Now, let me explain. Breaking Bad, we take Bryan Cranston, Walter White. He starts out as the chemistry teacher and ends up turning into like the mass murderer, evil villain, anti-hero at the end. There's a huge character arc. This whole thing, it's like, there's like, I have conflicting morals on this, and it's very fascinating because, again, I don't want gambling, but if I can't have no gambling, I don't want the tribes to be controlling it. But guess what? There's the gaming compact, so we got to adhere to that. So if you want to get rid of the gray area prediction markets, you have to do this bill because of the monopoly that they already have. So you have to give the Indians more than they already. So it's kind of like a crap sandwich, but at least we get, sports betting from your phone, without having to go downtown type of thing.
That's a real fascinating bit of calculus to say that we have to pass the bill to challenge what's in it.
That's also true. Also true. I mean, so yeah, I when I say I don't really care if the bill passes or not, like I do, but at the same time, my priority is governor race, ripping up the compact.
Mm-hmm.
That is my priority. Everything else kind of just like, okay, sure, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
But there were several other bills that came up this week in session. One of them that really stood out to me, I got clued into this one because of some comments on X, but there was a bill that would, I believe, define ectopic pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats voted against it, which you would think for a group of people that are always claiming to be pro-woman, they would support this legislation. But I think their calculus is they're not going to support it, or they couldn't support it because it actually takes away one of their false arguments regarding abortion, which is that ectopic pregnancy are those things, even though they're not.
Well, this would take away a good talking point, and they can't, the Democrats, to other extent, this is kind of just politics, where they have a really good, they have an extremely fortified position on abortion, and this would just take off a tiny talking point. Mm-hmm. Ectopic pregnancies. Well, what about ectopic pregnancies? The mother's going to die. Yes, no, we understand that, but that's not a true abortion,
right?
And of course, they kind of take one. This is why definitions are so important when talking about politics, policies. They take the definition of abortion as basically any situation like when you're removing a miscarriage. Oh, that's an abortion. Oh, Republicans don't want you to get rid of your miscarriage. Like, that is just a total fabrication, of course. And this is another instance of that, where they've used this in arguments. Well, you don't want people to get rid of ectopic pregnancies, therefore you hate abortion. So this is a very simple bill, just defining that so that it doesn't include abortion.
Mm-hmm. And then another bill this week that the Democrats voted against was one to block illegal immigrants from receiving health care. Yeah, you want Shadow Gov, you want to explain Dems' vote on this bill?
Well, this is a fascinating vote because I'm not an expert again, but I believe this would kind of codify what's already being done, which is illegals don't already get health care in Wisconsin. But there was like an argument about like the ER, you kind of have to give.
Right. Yeah, we're not talking about that here.
Yeah. No, this would be separate. But Democrats actually voted for this. So if the Democrats would like to eat their base, or their base would like to eat them, they can go after. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen any Democrats being like, oh, we're going to primary you or whatever. Because when you look at who it actually was, it was Sarah Kieski, which represents basically north of part of Dane County, but then Juneau, up there, where it's kind of Metro Madison, but still a lot of rural area, very moderate, kind of 50-50. Jamie Wall, who represents Green Bay, kind of Fox Valley. And then third, Jody Habush-Sinekin. So we have 3 Democrats in total voting for this. Now, again, you look at all their districts, all pretty close. So it makes sense, but it shows that the Democrats feel like they're a little bit vulnerable on this issue, despite what the Democrat pundits will say. So we can now say that banning illegals from healthcare is bipartisan in nature. Now, what I would love, and I'll renew this call, there's another ICE bill in the legislature regarding having counties comply with federal ICE detainers. When the ICE scans the jails, they're looking for illegals that have been booked into county jails. They put detainers, and then they come and get these people, but they can't be everywhere. So they have put these holds on there. Dane County, Milwaukee County do not honor those ICE detainers. Therefore, these people, if they are able to, will just get out. So that bill would essentially say, counties, you have to adhere to those detainers, essentially, or you're going to lose money. So that bill has not been sent to the governor's office. Now, we know he's going to veto it, clearly, but it would be nice to get people on the record, including vulnerable Democrats in the Assembly, in the Senate. So would love to get that in front of the governor for the talking point alone, just for the politics of it. Come on. Despite everything, despite the 2024 election, all the hoopla, all of the ICE raids, all of the nonsense that has gone on in the last 9 months, a lot of good stuff too, don't get me wrong. Deporting illegal immigrants still polls more than 50%, despite all of that. So this is a winning issue. We should definitely do that. Hope the legislature gets that done.
Yep. And then a bill that we've talked about a lot and something that I firmly believe in passed the Senate, and that is with a solid bipartisan vote. The state Senate voted to advance legislation to ensure that WIAA complies with public records laws and open meetings laws. The legislation's long overdue. So that
the reckoning is here.
Yeah. So that one passed, I believe, 22-11, which means I believe it heads to the Assembly now. But that was another, bill that we've talked about and really supported, is the fact that WIAA, for being an organization that is funded with student fees and should be supporting our public school students, it's not doing anything for them, is usually standing in their way of being the athletes that they want to be. It's time to shed some light on that. So really glad to see that one getting some legs. And then Shadow Gov, do you want to tell us about, we already talked a little bit about Josh Schoman's election reform package, but there was a pretty solid collection of bills that went through the Assembly on election reform. So do you want to give us a rundown on those?
Yeah, so we have a few here. One of them was along party lines that would make it easier for Wisconsinites to appeal if the Elections Commission rejected a complaint filed with the agency. Now, this, I think, stemmed from the, was it Kenosha or Racine mobile voting van?
Sure.
Someone had sued saying, hey, this person is disenfranchising me, essentially, and it's illegal. Well, the commission said, well, technically you weren't directly harmed by this. Therefore, you don't have standing for an actual complaint, which is basically like, if that's the case, then no one has standing for basically anything. So this would kind of allow these complaints to better move forward. Those were it was Racine mobile voting van in 2022. The court ruled that you can only appeal a commission's decision if they have suffered an injury to a legally recognized interest as a result. And so this would eliminate that requirement. Then there is some bills relating to establishing certain requirements for absentee voting that got sent to the Senate as well. And then AB 617, I'm just reading some Wiz Politics article here as well.
Dropping those Assembly bill numbers. And for the record, we will link to all this in the show notes. We'll give you the full rundown and where to find all of the information on bills, because the legislative webpage is actually pretty good about that, and it's easy to navigate once you figure it out. But for now, we'll make sure it's all in our show notes, and Shadow Gov, take it away.
So this one was regarding requiring clerks to return to voters absentee ballots with missing certifications or faulty information if it was received, no later than 7 days before the election. So if the ballot arrived after that time frame, you can contact the voter and correct the issue. So that was another thing. I know we kind of talked about, we want a Monday count bill, if you will, but that was not one of the bills. There was a slightly different version of that the Democrats did not like that was also passed. Then there was probably another notable one was there was a bill to basically make it so the security code on the back of your credit card, you have to put that in when you do an online donation.
Right. So that would kind of end that smurfing or that whole thing.
That was the inspiration of it. The bill was prompted because of the Act Blue complaints, which now requires donors to list their security codes. And so that was actually bipartisan as well. So that had one Democrat crossover. And then last but not least, funny one, this was a bill that would require those who circulate recall petitions to be eligible to vote in Wisconsin. It would also allow only those who are eligible to vote in the state to circulate nomination papers. So this is twofold, not just recall, but nomination papers as well. And of course, this was probably prompted due to the feckless, horrible, mean-spirited, at the very least, malicious recall saga, which I wish we had the podcast when that was going on, because that was a whole thing.
One day, if we have a lull, I could tell you all my stories from the recall times of 2011 and 12, and working several campaigns in that cycle and dealing with all that. So I've got plenty of stories from those eras.
Well, this was regarding the real governor, the speaker himself, Robin Voss's recall, where you had a bunch of crazies coming up from all around the country.
I remember that there were genuinely
flocking to Racine County to recall, to circulate.
And it really, I think both sides should be favorable to this, because if you have people coming from out of state, and I recall specifically with the speakers that there were people bust in and they had no idea what they were actually doing, and then they were either forging signatures or doing some unscrupulous things, and it actually, definitely undermines our democracy, as the folks on the TM folks on the left would say.
Yeah, so this would and this is just for nomination signatures as well. So this isn't just for the recall. I mean, if people want to come to Wisconsin and door knock and canvass,
that's fine.
That's fine.
Especially you import paid people. That both sides paratroop people in. This is a slightly
different situation. So yeah, that's just kind of a real quick. I mean, there's so much here, so we just got boom, boom, boom.
So finally, in our little bit of legislative news, I do want to give a shout out to a friend of the show, TM, Ethan Ray Sanchez. So he's been working with Nate Gustafson on a bill to allow cigar bars in Wisconsin again, and that cleared another hurdle. So he is very excited. I chatted with him a little bit on that, and it always feels good when you see a bill clear a hurdle, and you get it to those final stages, and that cigar bar looks like it's getting pretty close.
Amen.
So with that, we got to cover a bit of news that's been going on that's a little outside the state capitol. Going to Mequon first. I don't know if you saw this one, but Mequon is now overrun by illegal gangs who are burglarizing people's homes. And folks in Mequon have started neighborhood watch groups because of this. Now, for those who maybe don't know, Mequon used to be a conservative community. So
still technically is.
It's
changed a lot,
but it's a lot of North Shore limousine liberals moved up to Mequon when they needed larger plots of land. I also
think it's just a lot of Scott Walker Republicans that liked their tax cuts. They're cheap. They like that rhetoric, but also was probably a little bit more left on the social issues, and we just never got to that kind of divide as far as in state politics. So they voted for Scott Walker once, twice, maybe three times, but Donald Trump was a bridge too far, and they started posting black boxes and started posting the BLM fists and said
the hate note has no home here signs.
The hate the hate has no home here signs is the quintessential.
And for
Mequon voter.
And for illegal immigrants, that's the quintessential burgle our house sign. So from TMJ4, Mequon neighbors organized watch groups recommended enhanced security after string of burglaries. So the latest break-in occurred on Friday, adding to weeks of similar incidents across the city. Trail cameras throughout Mequon have captured footage of suspects walking through wooded areas targeting homes.
Well, let me just say this. Mequon is also just very affluent.
Yeah,
very,
it is.
Like, to be fair, a lot of Ozaukee County is. It's the smallest of the WOW counties, but it is, they got the North Shore there. Yeah, it's very nice area. Yeah, Mequon, Cedarburg, Grafton, Port Washington, and then you keep on going up even farther, but all very nice communities. So it's this is very out of place for Mequon, which has a lot of really big houses, really big plots of land, but really nice. So this is completely out of left field. If you're a liberal who's like, why are these things happening to us? Well, I don't know. Did you not see Joe Biden letting in 10,000 people per day over the southern border? And of course, the Mequon Police Department, the police chief, they did part of the article was they interviewed him, and he said, they South American crime gangs, they come up here specifically to commit crimes, and they get really good at it. And there was even an article just a couple days ago relating this to the not the same crime gang probably, but similar with the people that would break into like the Bucks players' house, when Bobby Portis had his stuff stolen. Same kind of thing. They case these big houses. They know exactly what they're doing.
Just happened to Shadur Sanders, actually.
Yeah. So like this is, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's another organized crime gang. And these just happen to probably be illegals. So kind of scary for a small community of 25,000 that never has ever had to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I would also like to say, and I tweeted this as well, I'm sure Representative Deb Andraka is right on it, making sure that all these South American gangs who terrorize her constituents are arrested and potentially deported.
I'm sure she's going to want to get those folks out of the country right away.
Well, see, this is the thing. Even if they were arrested, would she even want them properly detained and potentially deported? Like, to be fair, if someone's breaking into homes, like, I want them held accountable, but like, I want them probably deported first. Like, we had that story in Dane County where the woman killed the two teens. She should be held in prison.
Yes,
here in Wisconsin, I'll pay for her to be in prison. This though, I just kind of want you out.
Well, I mean, recover the stuff and then get them out. If you can. But
like, there's a kind of a line where it's like, you being here in jail, like, because what burglary, if they can prove that they were there at all these, it probably just wants you gone. Instead of being maybe. So
let's not tie up the courts with this stuff. Let's just get them out of here, especially if they can recover the stolen goods. And I'm sure Deb Andraka is going to really want to make sure that folks know how to protect their homes with Smith and or Wesson.
Yeah. Well, and so going back to the bill regarding locals having to work with the feds. Yeah. So there was that bill was actually in the assembly, and she voted against that bill. Okay. So that bill so even if they caught these people, well, Deb doesn't want the locals to have to comply with the ICE detainer. So if the Ozaukee County Jail, which probably not as liberal as Milwaukee County, of course, you would assume they would comply, but Deb probably doesn't want them though.
Yeah, well, let's see. With those limousine libs and those faux progressives in their McMansions, minute something goes wrong for them, minutes in their backyard, the NIMBYism comes out. The conservative, that secret conservative that's hiding in all of them.
And again, I want to see Jody Habush-Sinekin, which is the state senator for that area, Democrat, who's Representative Andraka's state senator. That ICE bill has not made it to the Senate yet, or hasn't been voted on yet.
We'll see what happens.
That's her area. This would be directly, with this story popping off the way it did, it went mega viral for at least a day or so. Would love to see her vote on that.
Yeah. So finally, before we get to our candy section, I do want to bring up one thing, and I want to redo that thing. So one other thing I want to talk about now in the news. I don't know if you saw this one, but there was a volunteer from Milwaukee Urban Stables that was fired from her position. So Milwaukee Urban Stables is an organization that uses police horses as mental wellness program for at-risk youth and veterans. Woman that was manning the front desk saw some guys in tactical vests and started a big fuss and kicked them off the property. So want to talk about this from a slightly different angle, which is the person who did it. Now, her name is Heather Asanyabi. And if you're wondering why I can actually pronounce that name correctly when I struggle with so many others, it's because she actually isn't just a nice little volunteer for this organization, but she is the managing director of Racine County Eye, which is a news organization out of the Racine area. She actually, back when I knew her, had interactions with her, working on campaigns. She was writing for Patch, which is that AOL-run, micro-targeted community news outlets. So she's not just a kindly volunteer, but in fact a journo, and Karen, who told a bunch of guys who she thought were staging an ICE raid.
They definitely were.
That you can't be here.
They definitely, in her defense, they definitely were.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had they were all kitted up, ERO, front, back, and everything. I mean, to be fair, this story is basic. To me, it's just, a journalist is a left-wing hack. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised. But to be fair, the Racine County Eye does a pretty good job as far as news. So
sure.
I can't complain too much. I don't know if she contributes herself. So I haven't seen any of her work, and maybe I have, I just didn't even know it. But it is a little bizarre though that libs feel like they are probably just a little bit over their skis on stuff like, hey, if I see a bunch of dudes kitted out or whatever, I'm not going to go over to them and just say, get the hell out of here.
Right. It's the irony that she is the co-founder and managing editor of Racine County Eye, and as a Karen that couldn't communicate properly is not lost on me.
You could have just said, hey, first of all, I mean, you're not even the owner. You're just a volunteer.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't even my place. Could you guys just
what's going on here, fellas? Are you okay? Do you need anything? What's up?
There's ways to go about this. Yeah. But you just know she probably went.
She went out there wagging her finger, screeching like a Karen. You can't be here. You guys are kidnapping our children.
Maybe, maybe they take pepper spray out. Maybe they deploy it. I don't know. Regardless, though, the Karens need to be put in their place a little bit on some of these things.
Yep. So someone else that got put in their place recently, and great transition by me, Beloit College actually reversed course and approved their Turning Point USA chapter. And
after probably massive pressure.
Yeah.
But
enough pressure that they turned off the replies on their X account because, and I think they may have blocked ours. I didn't quite check in recently, but so Jocelyn Jordan posted recently, I'm both so happy and proud to announce that Turning Point USA Beloit College chapter is officially a recognized club on our campus. I want to thank Rep. Van Orden, Fox News, Josh Schoeman, and Alex Story for their help and hard work in securing a step towards a change towards a greater campus experience. So good for Jocelyn to fight and get that, because there's so many kids, me included at the time, probably would have just been like, shucks, kind of throwing up our hands and be like, well, this is the end of it. But now, thankfully, we have social media. We have folks like Derek Van Orden and Josh Schoeman and Alex Story who are going out there.
DVO doesn't tweet at all.
Yeah. Never once. I've never seen him. Yeah. He doesn't run his own account at all.
Yeah.
So good for them. Good for Jocelyn, and good for Beloit College actually to make the right decision. Again, maybe they realized what we already knew, is that, if you're a small liberal arts college that's on the precipice of maybe going under because you're not attracting new students, a great way to turn them off is to tell conservatives they're not welcome, and they reverse that course.
No, and we're not even asking for a lot. It's just a club. Guys, we're not asking for you guys to change, the mere thought of having a conservative group on campus, they like self-immolate.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most bizarre thing in the world, and it's an indication of just how left-wing these campuses are, where they actually do. They feel like they have to self-immolate if there's any modicum of conservatism on campus, which is just bizarre in its own manner. But
a campus that is not going to or tried to not allow Turning Point is Sussex Hamilton High School. So I tweeted about this a little bit ago, and I just got a good kick out of Aaron Neskovitz, whose daughter is now suspended for ripping down a Turning Point USA poster. So the backstory here is that in Sussex Hamilton High School's student council voted against a Turning Point USA club, and instead the school principal secretly, quote unquote, approved the club anyway. So Aaron Neskovitz's daughter decided she was going to rip down the posters for Turning Point USA because she, again, claims that her daughter's actions were confusion because she thought the club didn't exist. So
I can smell BS a mile away.
Right. This is just a lie. And you just went and tried to get a friendly organization like TMJ4 to get suckered in to this wine mom's story of her daughter.
Like, this is good. Like, I'm not even sure like what the angle is here. Like, Turning Point got denied, but then it got reapproved.
Yeah. So
and like think about this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand Turning Point is a kind of a lightning rod issue most of the time, but a kid gets suspended and becomes a news story.
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of background here. Again, according to TMJ4, October 24th, before October 24th, all clubs at Hamilton High School had to be approved by the student council. On October 22nd, the student council voted unanimously 35-0 against the club's formation. Now,
rigged?
Yes.
So, no. Fortified election.
Yeah. So what I think happened here, and maybe it's just all of the lib dorks.
Theater kids.
Yeah, right. After they got out of their band uniforms and took off their theater stage makeup, decided to go to student council and vote against things because that's the overlap now. Or, the other thing is there's probably a bunch of kids that didn't care or wouldn't, or maybe wanted it, but were too afraid to speak up because they didn't, we're getting strong armed by those theater kids who, maybe still had their Sweeney Todd makeup on. So days later, Club America posters started popping up in the school's hallways. So this is when Aaron Neskovitz's daughter decided to go out on her own and tear them down. And apparently, according to Aaron, after several glasses of Chardonnay and a couple SSRIs, thinks her daughter is the victim here because she was confused and didn't think the club existed because the principal realized he would have a shit show on his hands if they didn't actually approve the club. So the principal's actions said... quoted, what I learned is that a lot of schools don't have a vote for this kind of thing. Duh. And I dug into it more and came to stumble upon the Equal Access Act of 1984. Equal Access Act states that schools may not deny comparable access to any other student group because of religious, political, philosophical, other content of the speech at the group's meetings.
There you go.
So he thought that if they didn't allow Turning Point USA, they would be out of compliance with the law. Based on this, the principal decided to do something. The student council can no longer decide which clubs can exist on campus.
Which that should probably like high schoolers. Come on.
Let's not let 14, 15, 16-year-olds make these decisions for
they can decide everything else.
Go pick your theme for prom and homecoming.
Yeah. No problem. Do whatever you want.
That's all really student council does. Maybe have a donut fundraiser around Christmas time for.
And to be fair, most groups on campus are probably not that controversial.
No,
but because of this, you need the teacher to step in because 35-0. First of all, I'm doubting that's real.
What do you think the odds are that Aaron Neskovitz's daughter was actually like the lead,
whipping people up?
Yeah,
oh, for sure.
Yeah,
and I'll say this before we go into that, just because I just love the fact that the teacher or the principal was like, pulled a Emperor Palpatine and said, I am the Senate, and just decided anyway. But this is exactly how this happened. This would have been a complete non-story, except for this mother mad about it. She's the one who went to the media about this and thinks, well, we're going to get them on our side because this looks stupid on their part. But guys, the principal just like, hey, here's a very logical thing. Also doesn't want a shitstorm on his front door as far as for denying this club, and he's just unilaterally like, let's just do the club. It'll be fine. But this one parent has now blown it up, and of course, I'm assuming the daughter probably learned some stuff from her mother. And
well, if you look at the pictures of her mom, like, she knows her way around a Pinot Grigio bottle and probably has those hate knows no home signs here that is going to get her robbed by the Mequon gang.
Probably there's at least one or two screeds in a community Facebook page for Sussex. That Sussex community page is probably on fire right now.
So a little bit of candy quickly. I don't know if you saw this one, Shadow Gov, but some folks in the Capitol were posting some photos I got a little bit interested in. Grace Stanke, a.k.a. Miss Wisconsin, a.k.a. Miss America, a.k.a. a nuclear engineer, was back at the Capitol very recently. Hope she was just pitching nuclear energy, as we talked about with Tom Tiffany on our interview with him last week. So if you didn't get to listen to that, go check it out. He's talked about it. Josh Schoman's talked about it, that we need to harness the power of the atom to bring cheaper energy to Wisconsin. I know that's been her thing for a while. I just thought it was cool that she was there. She's going to keynote the December graduations at UW-Madison. I have no take here other than cool to see her back in her home state.
Make her a nuclear czar.
Yes.
Republican governorship.
Yes.
Just make her nuclear czar. It's great optics. Plus nuclear is based and not crazy. To be fair, I don't know if I would like to live next to it, but
I've seen The Simpsons. It's just a three-eyed fish. It's no big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. No big deal.
So before we get into our last topic, I do want to also mention that the Wisconsin YR 1848 Gala is coming up. I know I've been getting some texts about that. Hopefully you guys have too. If you haven't, go check that out. So after Thanksgiving on December 5th, they're hosting a gala at the Wisconsin Brewing Park, which is where the Dockhounds play, right in my backyard. I would be able to walk there if I was around. Unfortunately, I'm really bummed that I can't attend, but DVO and Scott Fitzgerald are going to be speaking. It's a great group of folks that get together. I love hanging out with the YRs. There's some really fun people that are leading that organization, have really grown it tremendously over the past couple of years. I'm jealous because, that wasn't around when I was a YR, in that when I was a young Republican, there was no YR organization. Wish there was, because would have had a chance to meet so many more cool people than I already know through that organization. So sign up on the YR Facebook page. I think there's some tickets left. They're getting low.
I think Sydney Sweeney's headlining that or something.
Is that who it is?
Yeah. Sydney Sweeney's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Scott Fitzgerald, again, someone we interviewed.
Fitzgerald, DVO, Sydney Sweeney. Electric.
If that was there, I would fly home early. But finally, I just want to take a solemn moment. Eric Brooks posted this, that I didn't realize it's actually been 4 years since the Waukesha Christmas Parade, where Darrell Brooks committed an act of domestic terrorism and killed several people. And my only information there, my only take is that I was actually there at that parade. So it was actually probably the first time I got to talk to Dan O'Donnell live. So my story is that my kids and I were sitting at the very front of the parade, and we were close to the end. We saw Santa, Mrs. Claus. They were on their float, and all of a sudden, coming from my right to my left, was a dark colored SUV speeding down the street, parallel to, right alongside the parade. And at first I thought it was just, there's several bars over there. I thought it was just some guy who, was drunk or whatever, forgot the parade was going on, or realized he messed up and panicked for a moment, because I saw a police officer open up the barricade and try to usher this guy, and then people started clearing a path to make sure he could get out. And then all of a sudden he whipped the car right and sped down, and tragedy occurred. And for my kids and I, we were standing there, and the parade of course came to a complete halt. And so I took my girls. We went to go see Santa. We went to go say Merry Christmas, get the, little treat from them, and decided to leave. And it was on the drive home where all of a sudden there's a lot of sirens going on. And we saw him in the back, just off in the distance, we were even driving on 94 and saw a bunch of ambulances and police officers driving, the opposite direction. I was like, wow, I hope that's not for the parade. Mm-hmm. Tragically, it was. And I just remember posting on X going, holy shit, we were there. And then Dan O'Donnell called me and I provided a description for the vehicle and Daryl Brooks. He asked me some questions about what we did, and he was on air talking about it. And Dan was kind enough to call me a day or two later to just thank me for the time. And know Dan now very well and good guy, but didn't realize that once we left, didn't realize what was going on. And it's just absolute tragedy that
well, witnessing it in real time, obviously, mm-hmm. too. And I'll be honest, I can't remember where I was because I heard everything mm-hmm. after the fact. I didn't hear it as it, I was, reading the news, the updates, stuff like that. But Daryl Brooks is still up and at 'em, mm-hmm. still representing himself on appeal. Mm. And it is an absolute shame that, I am pro-life, and the Democrats, you have to be pro-life in every sense of the word. I am pro-death penalty, and Wisconsin actually had a referendum about this.
I remember that, yeah. 2008.
8, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it passed.
Yeah, 60-40.
60-40. The only county that voted no was Dane County.
Yeah.
Actually, I could be wrong on that.
I'll have to look back. I think it was 60-40 because there was the gay marriage amendment, I believe, was on the ballot at that same time.
But also passed.
And passed, I think 60-40. One of them might have been a little less.
But I think it was Dane County was the only one that voted against it. Even Milwaukee County voted in favor of it. But long story short, the death penalty should be reserved for very extremely heinous crimes. And I think Daryl Brooks' actions
100%.
Far exceed that. Yep. Far exceed that. People will shoot and kill multiple people, and it's horrible. Horrible. But to do what he did in the manner he did is so malicious and it's just so evil mm-hmm. that I think that there is no other proper punishment than the death penalty. I don't even care if it's the chair, the drugs, firing squad. I could care less.
Short drop with a sudden stop.
Yeah. And I really do think, and of course the bleeding hearts will somehow figure out a way to advocate against it. But I'm a little surprised that there weren't people that came out and said we should do a death penalty, like a constitutional amendment. After that happening,
it was absolutely,
it's sickening, and it makes me actually physically angry mm-hmm. that this guy can.
He's still clogging up the court system with ridiculous amendments and delusions.
And I'm not going to pretend to be some expert on, obviously you don't want to put to death someone that's innocent, but there are these cases which are pretty clear cut and dry mm-hmm. where you should not be able to have an appeal off of an appeal. Then it's 20 years down the road, mm-hmm. And okay, now you're done, but he's got nothing else to do. So
yep.
I feel like this would rise to the occasion. And so I don't know who needs to do it, but someone should do a constitutional amendment on it.
Yep. And with that, folks, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you have a moment to
do a turkey trot.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Yeah. No, hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family. Hope we provide you with a little bit of content to either, again, do intellectual battle with your aunts and cousins, or something to listen to while you're driving to grandma's house or on your way home. So with that, we're out. We'll talk to you soon.